Hi everyone, I'm David Barroux from the French newspaper Les Echos. Welcome to the Nordic Talk. The idea is really to say we all face the same problems. We all need to find solutions. We need to find solutions that work quick. To be efficient is our new challenge. And we cannot do this on our own. We need to exchange ideas around the world to find the best solution. And to do that, what the Nordic Talk are trying to do is to reunite people from different countries, the Nordic countries, and today from France. We're going to talk today about three subjects: green living, urban planning, and wood building. Cities are at the core of the development of our societies, but we face huge problems. How can we solve and how can we cope with those problems? Our first Nordic Talk today, this morning, is on green living, green urban spaces, healthy, livable neighborhoods. And to talk about these key subjects, I have two guests today. On the other side, Kaisa Spilling, who is development manager at Forum Virium Helsinki in Finland. Good morning, Kaisa.
Good morning. Good morning.
And just next to me, I have Dominique Alba, who is Directrice générale of APUR, the Atelier Parisien d'urbanisme. It's created by the Paris city and other in the Paris area to try to find a solution for urbanism challenges. Good morning, Dominique.
Hello, good morning.
As I said, we live in cities, but cities are polluted. Cities are also facing challenges like congestions, pollution, traffic jam. And we need also to reintroduce some kind of green in the cities. We need to make sure that the way where we spend the most time, because we cannot go in the countryside every day, are actually livable. Kaisa, in the Nordic countries, you've been thinking about those subjects for maybe quite some times. If I tell you that this is an important subject, I'm sure you agree. But in terms of introduction, can you tell us how you see this problem in your city like Helsinki or in the Nordic countries in general?
Yes. Could I introduce myself a bit so that you know where I come from? I could show my slides now. My name is Kaisa Spilling and I come from Forum Virium Helsinki, the city-owned innovation company. And can you see my slides?
The slide will come. Just go ahead. Can we show the...
Yeah. And well, today we're talking about creating green and healthy cities, but today it doesn't look so green in Helsinki, but the nature is still near, so it's about minus 10 degrees cold. And yes, we can go to the next slide. So the city of Helsinki has the vision to become the most functional city in the world. And it also tries to reach the ambitious goals to become carbon neutral by 2035. And us at Forum Virium Helsinki, the city-owned innovation company, we help the city to reach these goals by co-creating together with the public sector, with companies, with the academia, and of course, with the residents. Next slide, please. So, like other Nordic cities, Helsinki is growing at a fast pace, and older areas are being developed to residential areas, for example, old harbour areas especially. And also, these areas provide perfect settings for experimentation and innovation. But we also know that densification then provides problems for biodiversity and the resilience of green infrastructure. Next, please. And our urban lab is Smart Kalasatama, one of these districts, which is also the model area for smart city development in Helsinki. And Smart Kalasatama, there's about 5,000 people living today, and there will be 25,000 by 2040. And it's really also an innovation platform for smart and green solutions. Next, please. So if we think about a smart district, so there is all smart infrastructure like smart energy networks, everything supporting smart mobility. But when it's an old harbour district, so also the green needs to be co-created. So as you see in the picture, so the trees are new, there's nothing from before. Mm-hmm. And next slide, please, so I'll tell a bit about our approach. So we have been benchmarking solutions in other Nordic cities because of the climate conditions. So something that works maybe in France might not work in all the Nordic cities. So we've been benchmarking, for example, Royal Seaport in Stockholm, Klimakvarter in Copenhagen, and Green Roof Institute in Malmö. And we have been working with the stakeholders, with urban planners, other stakeholders, and of course the residents, for kind of bringing all the people together in our projects to really support good urban planning of green solutions. And also, in a way, we have been using digital tools because that's a good way to give, first of all, give possibilities for wider audiences to participate in the planning. So we've used digital tools for participatory planning, but also then brought the data to the 3D plan of the city to visualize and simulate the solutions before they are made.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have been also experimenting different kinds of modular solutions. For example, this green wall was brought to the new school in Kalastama district. First of all, it was gathering the rainwater in the solution. Then it also served for the kids to plant the plants and that way participate in bringing the green to the schoolyard. But also it's a good way to learn about biodiversity as the whole setting attracts insects and bees, and that way really kind of brings something concrete to the picture. I can take the next slide, and it's the last one. So the city also has initiated participatory budgeting. I think you have been working with that in France, in Paris as well. And during the round last fall, we were collecting ideas from the citizens, and really it showed that green areas and parks are topping the lists of the citizens in what they really want. Mm-hmm. And in addition, so we are working with that on the Nordic level, so maybe we can talk more about that as well.
Okay, maybe just a quick follow-up questions, Kaisa. What is the population in the city like Helsinki, and in terms of densification, is it a very crowded city like we have in Paris, or is it very close to the nature already?
Well, that's a good question when you ask from France. So Helsinki has 650,000 inhabitants and about 1.4 in the metropolitan area. So we're kind of small when you compare to France. And of course, we do have proportionally much more green spaces than, for example, in Paris. But now as the cities are densifying, so as the green areas are very important for the Nordics, so we really want to take this into consideration when planning the districts. Mm-hmm. And also, we think that it's really an important issue, especially when you think about the cities, all the Nordic cities and, well, the world's cities' carbon neutrality goals. So it's something that we really have to pay attention to.
But is the city growing? Is the population increasing? Do you have more and more people inside the city, or is the city spreading?
The city is growing, and like I showed on the map, so older for example, old harbor areas are being transformed to residential areas. So it's densifying all the time. So that's kind of new for us. So earlier on, so basically the older residential areas had a forest in the backyard. So now when we're building like within the city, so that's not always the case.
So the new challenge is that you need to bring nature in new areas where people are going to live in the future, and areas that used to be industrial areas sometimes?
Yes, also that. But I also think that when making plans that fit the Nordic climate, well, the climate is changing as well. So it's also good to hear about solutions from other areas, both from the Nordic cities, but also from elsewhere in the Europe, as well, we don't know what kind of climate we're facing in the coming years.
I read when I was working on this presentation that there is something called the Nordic Smart Cities Network. Can you tell me what it is and how maybe they help you try to face those challenges?
Yes. Well, we have been working together with the other Nordic cities. The Nordic Smart Cities Network actually represents all the 5 Nordic countries: Finland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Iceland. And there's currently 20 cities working together. Currently, we have a common project called Nordic Healthy Cities. And one of the topics we are working within this project is green and healthy neighborhoods. And we are really aiming to experiment, first of all, how to support the urban planning with new digital tools. And on the other hand, we are experimenting new modular solutions that may be brought in the neighborhoods that support not only kind of green infrastructure, but also kind of the inclusivity and activity of the residents, because that's something having green around does.
Okay. Thank you, Kaisa. I'm going to talk to Dominique now. We've seen the situation in a Nordic country. Nature is very close, and the city is not that big. In a city like Paris, how different is the situation? How important is this subject of green inside the city? Is it something you don't really think about because it's a big city?
Okay, thank you. Perhaps I just explain what is Appur in a few words, because I think it's necessary. It's a partnership think tank, if you could say, with public money. He's 50 years old, and it works on now very large scale because it's Great Paris scale, so it's quite 800 square kilometers superficie and 7 million people. And when it started, Appur was very strongly involved in stopping the creation of the highway along the River Seine, and also with the destruction of Paris. And in the last period, Appur was involved in creating green streets. So that means that we just grow with also what the citizens are waiting for, and meaning what the citizens are waiting for, it's what the politics are doing. I hope the citizens elect the politics, and the politics do what the citizens want. So some words about Paris. It's so different from Helsinki that I think it's not interest to compare whatever. The specificity of Paris, it has the same limit since now 160 years, because it's from the 1860.
It's surrounded by a kind of a wall.
By the peripheric.
Yeah.
That is the administrative limit of Paris. So in fact, the question of green is something very particular, because as you have to understand, in the beginning of the 20th century, we had 3 million people living in Paris in very difficult conditions. Now we have 2.2, but using Paris each day is 3.5 people inside the city. So the way the people want green space, and it was started, the green space in the cities, in the European city, the old one. At the beginning, it wasn't, the idea of the people wasn't to have green space. It was to have services and to be all together in a very, very efficient marketplace. And the green space started with the health. We need to be in a good health. And in the beginning of the 19th century, we started with trees and with gardens, like the English model. London started before, and Paris did it after. And now it increases all time because now we want to have green space everywhere. We want to have also place for agriculture, place for nice trees, because as you know, if you show on one of your slides a very, very huge tree, but to have that sort of tree in Paris, it needs a big, big space, so we have it in the woods. So the only space where you can go on with nature is the public space, and a part of the private one. The private one is on the buildings, on the wall, on the roof, on the private space in the courtyard. And by the way, we have the public space. And one thing very particular in Paris, and I don't know how it's organized in Helsinki, but that gives some possibilities to do that, like in Barcelona. And we have 28% of the superficie of Paris that is public space and made by streets. That means
almost 1/3.
Almost 1/3. So it's a huge possibilities. It offers huge possibilities. If you take away a part of the cars that are just parked on this public space, you can do things, and you can, for example, if you take away 60,000 cars, you can put 100,000 trees.
So the idea is to maybe reduce the space allotted for cars and transform that into space for green, because we need to add green in the city.
It's one of the possibility. It's not to take the cars out of the circular lanes. It's just to say when the car is parked, perhaps it's better to put it underground. We have enough space. We have most place underground that we need. For example, we have 500,000 cars belonging to the people living in Paris, and we have much more space in the underground. So everybody could put his car underground, but it's more expensive. So it's less expensive to put it on the street. So all the game is to take this out and to have the nature coming back.
How long, if you at Apio, when you think about long term, how long will it take to maybe transform the city in a really impactful way, that it really makes a difference, that we see actually more trees and more green in a city that has already its limits?
Perhaps two things. Cities, it never stops. It's always changes. So I think in some part it will go very quickly, and in other part it will be much more difficult. We have in Paris underground, we have the metro, so it's quite difficult. But now we also have the new metro that is expanding around Paris. It's
Grand Paris subway.
Grand Paris Express. Yeah. It's 200 kilometers, so it's as long as the actual metro. And the superficie is going to be more or less the 700 square kilometers I spoke about. And there the density is not like in Paris, 20,000 people for square kilometer. It's much more like 8,000, like London. So we have there possibilities of protection of green spaces. In fact, when you look at the places that are going to be built, we have around the new stations, more or less 20 million square meters that are going to be built, and already 15 that has been built. We don't have enough space for green space. So this is a big question, because the land value is so important.
So expensive, yeah.
So expensive that nobody wants to keep it for green space. So this is going to be, I think, the fight for the politics for the next period, just to protect that. That's why we speak about trees, because trees are green space, and you can have trees and also other uses. You can walk along trees, you can put your car along trees, etc., etc. So it's perhaps a way to have a sort of green of nature inside the city.
How do you try to involve the population? Because you say politicians are there to do what the population asks them, but how do you know what the population wants and how fast you should go?
I think it was very interesting to see what happened in the last local elections in France, because quite all the programs spoke about going on with nature and with trees, especially with trees. That means that trees is really the thing you can do easily in a high-dense city. And in Paris particularly, what decided Anne Hidalgo, and she was elected in a very nice...
She's the mayor of Paris. Yeah?
She is the mayor of Paris. And in 2014, she decided to have a participative budget.
Okay.
As you spoke about Helsinki. It's 5% of the total investment budget of the city, so it's 500 million euros. So it's a huge amount of money. And the people can propose things to do, and after they vote. And large majority of the project is about green space.
So the citizens say we want to spend.
So the part of money the citizens are allowed to spend by themselves, a large part of it is about green space. And now you have a green building permit, if I may say it like that. So you're allowed to do things in the trees with a green permit. So it allows you to put flowers or have small gardens on the street in front of your home.
How many trees do you plan to plant in the city like Paris?
The program of Anne Hidalgo is very ambitious. It's 160,000 new trees, and part of them, it's 100,000 is around the peripheric. And it's the idea is to transform a space that was historically a green belt in the new green belt, taking place on about 1 kilometer. The peripheric is in the middle, so you have a part of it that is outside Paris in other collectivities and one inside Paris, but everybody is working together, and that's also something quite new. All those people, they just are around the table. We draw the situation, and everybody say, oh, I can do it there and there and there and there. And it's like if you take millions of good initiatives to make one project.
Have you started planting the
Yes.
trees already?
Yes, it has started already, and it was started also with citizens. Bloom Forest started on the peripheric. I think it was I say perhaps 1 year ago, because you have to plant in winter. But yes.
Maybe a question to both of you, Kaisa and Dominique, on the cost. It's very good to have more nature. It's very good to have more green in cities, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite costly. Dominique mentioned the problem of the fact that the land is very valuable, so difficult to take away land from people. But being green is costly, so how do you face this challenge of the cost, Kaisa? In Nordic countries, does it mean that you will have to increase maybe local taxes to spend more for green, or just reallocate spending? How do you face this issue of costs?
Of course, when you are planning new green, it is costly, but it has to be thought about as part of the whole infrastructure. And I don't think it's so much about the cost. It's more or less to think about these issues in a strategic way from the start. And then when you think about the benefits, so the benefits are really on people's health and and also when you plan nature-based solutions, they are often also the most resilient ones and the ones that are the most functional as well.
And in a city like Paris, what is the impact on cost of being greener?
I would say that nature is health and beauty. And for example, when you start to develop in a land, you can choose to have park, etc. And after it's a sort of balance between what you're going to sell for offices or private flats and the place you're going to keep for the pleasure of the city, the resilience of the city, the sharing of the city. And after you have a sort of debt, perhaps. Everybody speaks about the debt today. And this debt is on long term, and it goes on with the value. So today, Paris is really a city going on quite well. Even if some people lived during the COVID, many people want to stay here. Like they want to stay around Paris, and the people, they come and live in places when they think they will have place for nature and gardens, 5-minute walks, because now everybody speaks about the 5-minute walk city. And to have a garden close to your house where you can go with your children or where when you can go to read a book is something tomorrow that's going to be normal, like a normal urban service. Now, this is brand new because before the normal urban service was to have metro accessibility, mobility with buses.
Efficiency.
Efficiency. And I think tomorrow it's going to be something perhaps lower, not lower, to go slowly, slower, and to have just this place to just be well. Take
more time, but also enjoy it a little bit more.
Enjoy it, and perhaps you use the net to just have the communication like we have today.
A bit difficult because you have not met face-to-face and you have not visited each other's cities, but what do you think you could maybe learn from the other city and that can lead you to maybe act? Is there lessons that can be taken from other countries like Paris or others that what we've discussed about could maybe help you go faster or in a different way? Kaisa?
Well, I have lived in Paris actually as a kid, and I just love the city. And I think what we can kind of learn, for example, from the larger cities is that really in dense areas, so they attract people to be out. But then, of course, it demands planning also the green and healthy aspects within the whole structure. And
Planning,
so that's one thing.
You would and yourself, Dominique, what do you think you could learn from Nordic, where they face the same challenge but in a totally different way?
To take your bicycle when it's less than 0 degrees, because it's what we have in Paris today, and for the Parisians, it's not so evident. We think that it's not possible to do bicycle when it's winter. And by the way, now people do it more and more. And I think in your cities, you're really used to live with those sort of difference of climate. We are more used to have a sort of regular climate, and you're more used. You have this capacity to face -10, as you said, perhaps more. Also, now we have the River Seine that's floating, and it's a problem in the city. So we have to learn about that, how to live with this nature that's perhaps sometimes stronger than us.
Maybe a last question for you, Dominique, and then we will move to the Nordic Talk number 2 of this morning. Just maybe one question on regulation. Do you think that we also maybe need to change the regulation, the laws of urbanism to actually push also the private sector to be more ambitious when it comes to be green?
Oh, this is a huge question. I try to be short. We need to change the planification terms because it's really normative and it separates the functions. And everybody knows that now we want to have all the functions mixed. So we have to change the tools for that. I don't know if it's going to be more efficient using the private sector. In the last years, in the last period, when the politics are strong, it's okay with the private sector. But as soon as the politic hasn't enough power, it's very hard to control the private sector. So now things are changing a little bit, because to give value to your proposals, you need to be in wood, you need to have green, etc., etc. So this changed a little bit, hoping it goes on.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Kaisa. Thank you to both of you. And please don't go away. We are now going to move to our Nordic Talk number 2 on this morning's session. Thank you very much, Dominique. Thank you, Kaisa.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Happy to have met you.
Thank you.